Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm doing, as you guys requested, the 2022 Senate map if Trump was still president. Now, obviously there are going to be a few things that are going to change in this map. We're going to see things getting pretty interesting in some cases, so without further ado, let's get started. Washington was already a safe state this year. It was supposed to be likely, but it was safe because, again, the red wave was overestimated. There wasn't even a red wave, if you want me to be honest. Oregon and California, both pretty blue states already. In California, what's his name? Why am I suddenly blanking on names? Gavin Newsom, yes. Gavin Newsom would have won by even more. But we're not talking about governors, we're talking about Senate, so never mind. Hawaii, easily. Colorado was already safe. I knew it was going to be safe. Everybody was saying likely, and I said safe. So that's one thing I got right, people. You can at least say I got that right. Okay. New Hampshire is actually safe. Yes, believe it or not, New Hampshire is safe. Let's take a look at the Senate election in New Hampshire. And we can see exactly what... Yeah, see? I mean, look at this. Don Bolduc lost by 9.1. So, with a blue wave scenario where Trump is still in office and is still the unpopular incumbent that he would still be, New Hampshire is safe, guys. I mean, maybe Chuck Morse would have done better, but even so, yeah. It's not going to be any different. It's probably going to be a win of like 12 points, possibly, because it was like a neutral year this year. So I'm not seeing an extreme leftward shift, but it is going to be a leftward shift of several points, probably 3 to 6, I would say, from what it was this year. I mean, it was like an R plus 2 point something year, so we could say that this is like a D plus 3, D plus 4 year. That would be a reasonable estimate. Vermont was like already so. Oh my gosh, yeah. Gerald Malloy got destroyed in Vermont. It wasn't even close. So much for the Trafalgar Group's poll, huh? You can't trust Trafalgar anymore, people. Stop trusting Trafalgar. New York, Chuck Schumer had an unusually close race this year. He won by only 13 points, about. But when we consider that the fact that that's already safe margin, there is no reason why it would be any different. That looks to be about... Oh, of course, we have to talk about Connecticut. Richard Blumenthal would win by more than 15. He would win by like 20. And in Maryland, of course, what's his name? Chris Van Hollen, obviously, would win against this guy with the insanely great facial hair. Come on, guys. This is why I'll never be in Maryland. If they can't elect this dude with all of his great facial hair, then I'm sorry. They're beyond hope. Anyway, and of course, Illinois. So, we have all the safe Democratic states to fill out. Sorry, that took way too long. It shouldn't have taken that long. Idaho, easily safe. Brad Little would win that. Not Utah. We will get back to Utah, but not Utah. Alaska would still be safe. It would be an easy Murkowski win. Murkowski would probably have won by even more, honestly, considering she got all the votes in the ranked choice from Dems. So that would probably be the case there. Okay, let's look at North Dakota and South Dakota, both easy Republican wins. Kansas would not really be any different, nor would Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's special election. Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri. Yeah, Missouri. And Iowa, you know what? I'm tempted to say Iowa would not be safe in this scenario. I'm willing to say that it's not safe. Indiana was already incredibly red. Indiana's my home state. I was incredibly surprised at this. What is this, guys? What is this? Like, look. Todd Young won by likely, and now he suddenly wins by 21 points. Like, what? I did not understand that whatsoever. Rand Paul would do worse, but would still easily win by, I don't know, like 18, 17, something along those lines. Tim Scott, electoral juggernaut, easily would win. As in Alabama, Katie Britt would win. Florida. Florida would still be safe. I'm calling it. Florida would still be safe. Marco Rubio here won by 16.4% exactly, despite the fact this was considered a likely R race, and he led by only about 10 to 12 points, sometimes even less in most of these polls. It became quite obvious that, of course, Rubio just would still win. Like, Florida bucks national trends, mind you. If we look back at 2018, when Rick Scott beat Bill Nelson was a stinking incumbent, okay? And Rick Scott wasn't even that popular of a governor. And now like, for real, it was close, but like Ron DeSantis won, it was a blue wave year in 2018. So why would Florida be any different bucking the national trend? Sure, it would be closer. I bet it would be like R plus 10. But it would not be below the double-digit margin. It just wouldn't be below that. Same with Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis would still win by around 15 to 13 points. Somewhere in that area, but we are not talking about that now, anyhow. Okay. We have a few states to talk about that are left. Let's start from the West Coast and talk about the state of Nevada. Nevada! This state would be barely a lean state. Barely a lean state. Adam Laxalt was supposed to win this year. Don't ask me why he didn't. I think it was dumb that he lost, frankly. It didn't really make much sense, but regardless, he lost. So now the question becomes, of course, what it would be in 2022 if Trump was still in office. And personally, I believe this race would be lean. It would be a 4.9, well, heck, we'll put it at likely. We'll say she wins by a Jackie Rosen margin. That seems pretty reasonable to me, don't you think? Don't you think? Eh? Okay. Because we're shifting it to the right, obviously. I mean, to the left. So, she was like a 0.8% victory. Shift it like 4 or 5 points, and you get like a 5 to 6 point victory. I mean, that's reasonable enough, isn't it? Isn't it? Okay, anyway. Utah. Evan McMullen running against Mike Lee. Mike Lee barely won this race by a safe margin. He won by 10.4, which is a pretty lousy margin for a Utah Republican. But he was running against this independent who claimed to be all this moderate guy and such. And it was hilarious. He was like, I'm moderate. Anyway. Okay. So, Mike Lee would still win this race. But, he would win it by like 5. I'm not even joking, guys. I know you're thinking, what? Mike Lee winning a race by 5? Impossible. No. With Evan McMullen, this race literally could have been 5, or maybe within 5. If I'm being completely honest. This race would have been legitimately competitive. It wouldn't have been close to flipping, but it would have been competitive. it wasn't competitive this year, as we all know. But yes, it would have been way closer. Evan McMullen would have gotten huge funding. Democrats would have been like, yeah, let's knock off Mike Lee. And there would have been some competitiveness to a race in freaking Utah. Okay. Arizona, yeah. Mark Kelly would win this race by 8 to 9, honestly. No questions asked. How Blake Masters lost by 4.9% when Kelly, like, Kelly was supposed to underperform the polls, and here he overperformed them. I mean, isn't that stupid? Just more examples of how polls sucked in 2022. I mean, really, they were absolutely terrible. And in the wrong way, too. They didn't overestimate Democrats, they overestimated Republicans, which is just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I'll be honest, I was shocked. Anyway, so easy win for Mark Kelly. There really is no debate here about how close this would have been, because it wouldn't have been close. It would have been nearly a safe margin, probably, especially with a weak candidate like Blake Masters. Okay, Iowa. Chuck Grassley won this race by 12.2. In 2022, assuming Trump was still in office, this race would be likely R. It would be down a few points, and Grassley actually could have come close to a lean margin, honestly. This could have been, let's say, this could have been an like R plus 7, R plus 6 race. Because shift it to the left a few points, it's not hard to imagine this. It wouldn't have been that close, but it would have been close enough to where Grassley would be like, am I going to win re-election? I'm not going to lose, right? Because everybody loves me. Anyway. Oh yeah, here's the first juicy bit in our discussion. So Wisconsin. Ron Johnson had the luck to run up against a terrible candidate. However, Ron Johnson would probably not have run for re-election in 2022 if Trump was still president. He probably would have stuck to his pledge and said, nope, not running, because he knew that he would probably lose by a lot. This race would be likely D. I'm being completely honest. There is absolutely no way this race would have even been that close. It would have been like Tammy Baldwin 2012 margins, and Democrats would get another seat. So, yeah. There wouldn't be any Johnson to run against, so no incumbent. Would have been very, very easy to win this seat. Ohio, Tim Ryan would have done way better in. This would have been like an R plus 2 race. This would have been a legitimately competitive race. Because what happened in 2022 was everybody thought, oh look, we got J.D. Vance's new official portrait. Hey, isn't that cool? I think I'm going to post that to my community tab. That's epic. Oh man, you look good, JD. You're looking good. Anyway, Tim Ryan would have legitimately made this race close, because in 2022, everybody knew this race was semi-competitive, but they didn't really think it was that competitive. They were like, J.D. Vance is going to win this race, but it's not like it's going to be by a whole lot. And in the end, yeah, he won by 6.5 points. Ignore Wikipedia. They have it as being like 6.1. I don't think that's really correct. I think they were kind of wrong about that. Wikipedia's not always the best at citing their election stuff. But yeah, this race would have been legitimately competitive, and Democrats could have possibly picked it up. It could have maybe even been Tiltar, but I'm going to keep it as lean R. Say it's like an R plus 2 race or so. Alrighty. That was cringe. Why did I say that? Okay, Oz lost by 5 in Pennsylvania. By the way, do we have John Fetterman? No, we still don't have the Fetterman official portrait. Are you kidding me? We don't have Fetterman's official portrait? Aww. I want his portrait. Oh well. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So, John Fetterman would have won this race even easier than he did this year. He would have won this race by, like, oh crap, he could have even won by double digits, frankly. Oz was already kind of a not-so-good candidate to run. I mean, he was good. He would have won if there hadn't been early voting before the debate performance, and had he gotten Trump levels of rural turnout, he would have won by a huge, not a huge margin, but he would have won by like 0.5 or something like that. But he lost because of those factors, I personally believe. Fetterman, however, would have probably run up the margins extremely everywhere. And I mean extremely. This guy could have become like Bob. You know what? You know what? I'm just going to be realistic. Pennsylvania would have been safe R. I mean safe D. There is no possible way this race would have been that competitive. It would have been like 10 points barely, but it would have been like Fetterman would be like the new Bob Casey Jr., okay? And Josh Shapiro would have probably won by like 20 against Doug Mastriano. So, anyway. Okay. We have two more races. We have North Carolina and we have Georgia. Let's look at North Carolina. Ted Budd. And he got his official portrait. How nice. I love official portraits. Anyhow, Ted Budd should have won this race by a likely margin. That was my personal prediction. As usual, I was wrong because I'm an idiot. But Ted Budd won this by, 3.2% about. So he did all right. But I think personally this would have been a tilt D flip for Democrats. I think this race, actually a lean D. This would have been like a 1-point win, especially if Democrats probably would have run a stronger candidate. Like Jeff Jackson probably would have been the nominee. And he would have almost certainly done really great in this race. So I believe that would have been a flip. I truly believe it. And that would give Democrats 2 flips right there. So instead of just three flips, they would have gotten 3 flips. So it's insane, I know, but what are you gonna do? If you're a Republican, I guess you're probably glad Trump didn't get reelected, right? Actually, that's stupid to say because, of course, most Republicans want Trump reelected, so I can't really say that. And then we get to Georgia. Herschel Walker, not really a good candidate. He kind of sucked. But he managed to make this race closer than anticipated. It was like a 2.8% win. I was pretty good at predicting the runoff, I'll be completely honest. I predicted for the runoff it was like a 2% victory I had, and it was 2.8. I had a pretty good prediction for that runoff. Another thing I can tout. But regardless, this race would have gone to a runoff. Actually, you know what? It just might not have. It just might not have. I'll be completely honest. This race would have been lean D without a runoff. Actually, you know what? It would have been likely. It would have been likely no matter what, regardless of the runoff or not. If it had gone to a runoff, even if Trump was still president, this race would have been still likely in the runoff, and Democrats would have gotten a 53-seat majority over the Republicans' 47. And that is my prediction for what 2022 would have looked like had Trump still been in office. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye.